Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talks with Crystal Skulls. I'm your host, Tanya Marie, and today I'm going to jump into an exploration around opening up the communication lines between yourself and your crystal skull. And so in essence, how to connect more and talk, communicate, listen, all that good kind of thing that a lot of you have been looking to want to experience. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I've received a lot of inquiries around how to do this, how to hear them, how to receive even a name from the crystal skull, and from other friends of mine who have also had people talking with them and sharing some frustrations as well. So I thought I would at least address some of the things that can help us to engage this process more. And today we'll start with where I think the fundamental core processes would be most helpful for that. And then in subsequent episodes, we may dive into some of the specifics. But I do, for those of you who don't know, I do offer more in-depth one-on-one kind of, I guess, mentoring sessions around this and support for people, because this has become something that people were having so many challenges with. And I actually call these sessions Talk with Your Crystal Skull sessions. And it is a way to help guide people to discover their own way, your own way with the skulls, because it is a unique process to everyone. And so I help to cultivate that deeper internal awareness and intuitive connection, and ultimately the self-trust that comes into play with unfolding these layers of your life. In your spiritual growth path as well, because these things that we're going to touch on even today are ultimately going to help you with opening up your gifts more and helping with the processes of any kind of avenue in life that you're wanting to experience more of and grow deeper into, especially when it comes to the spiritual or metaphysical realms. So I had a big nudge that this would be important. So today we're just going to hit on some first, as I said, core steps that I think could be helpful for this process from the get-go, and fundamentally will help affect many other areas of your life. And you'll see what I mean as we go along. So if you have felt some challenge with how to connect with your skulls, how to hear them, this I think is going to provide some of that groundwork to prepare you for the journey. If you're a seasoned crystal skull communicator, you may find that some of this stuff is not necessary for your particular process, but you may also find some reflections or resonance with your own journey. Or maybe even a new pearl of widening your experience, because I find that we're always learning new things. Even when we think we've hit, an end point with something, there's always kind of a new perspective that we can bring to the table. So maybe something will speak to you. And if not, then maybe this episode isn't for you, and stay tuned for others. So I want to share, these things are not isolated, as I said, to just the experience of communicating with your skulls, because I do believe that they can be applied to any new path or gift that you're trying to open and strengthen in your life. So please feel free, as always. I love to hear anything you have to share, any comments below this video, because I know the community also would love to hear your wisdom and receive any kind of insights and tidbits that you would like to share. I'm not going to be able to hit on everything. I kind of go where the energy flows and what I feel called is most important. But I do I've shared it before, I do really love to support each individual to find their unique way. So that's why I do tailor the individual sessions outside of, this episode that I'm sharing to the specific person, because I do find that we all have different ways, different gifts. And so to harness those gifts in your process is beneficial, and to find, those access points to what will help make things more fluid, enjoyable, and all that kind of thing for you. So there are different kinds of exercises or guided meditations and explorations that you can do, not just with myself, of course, with any thing that you decide to explore out there to help open up your gifts more. And you can apply it to this process here that we're talking about with the crystal skulls. Today, though, I want to address, before you even get into that process of the communication part, are some of those deterrents, as I said, the things that could be hindering you and hindering the flow, and ways to cultivate a clearer invitational point to begin the journey. And then you can see where you go from there. Not all of this is going to speak to everyone, but maybe you'll find something that does as we go along. So let's just jump into some of these ideas and see what they bring up for you. We're going to, with this, help address those frustrations by uncovering what could be behind that. And it may lie much deeper than just talking with your crystal skull. So if any of you are having some worries that you're just not getting anything, these could be places to look at why that might be. But I also believe that you probably are getting something, and you may just either not be able to hear it, or it may just not be, as prevalent of a voice at this time, or you're judging perhaps how it's coming through. But we'll get into that a little bit more. But I do believe that something is happening. It's just, we got to clear out all that stuff so that we can see and hear it and be aware to it a little bit easier. For those of you who don't know, I am a Reiki master teacher, and I do offer some online training modules for that, training, certification training in Reiki. I also have some other online training courses I call the Empowerment Series, and that takes Reiki to the next level, which is Everyday Reiki, and Transcending Duality is another one. And I'm not getting into that here. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because if some of you have taken some of those courses, especially the Everyday Reiki one, you may find some repeats in this particular episode, because a lot of the things that can get in the way of even somebody practicing Reiki, and that whole experience of being able to tune into energy, can also be addressed by some of these deterrents that we'll talk about today. Like I said, these are kind of across the line themes that help us with many layers to our journey, and not just, specific to talking with crystal skulls. And so even before working with energy, if you aren't conscious of what are the driving things behind our thoughts, behind our beliefs and our feelings, then that can cause you to doubt, the process, or even become frustrated or confused, or block the process that you're trying to engage with. And in fact, it could just be remedied by something as simple as being more present to what's actually going on within yourself, and becoming the one who's in control of the experience, rather than those things controlling from behind the scenes. I know it makes more sense as we talk about this. So in order to be more empowered, any process requires us to become more present, as I said, patient, surrendering, and also consistently committed to practicing with as much of an unconditional, open heart to the process. So you can apply, as I said, a lot of these things to anything and not just to crystal skulls. Anything in life, even if it's just communicating with a partner, a lot of these things that I just mentioned can be very beneficial in that process. So this is part of the rewiring that we may need to engage on some level or another, depending on you and your journey, and that, and your individual conditioning that you've experienced in life, so that we can then assist a clearer channel and alignment within ourselves to receive information and experiences that are more in those subtle fields, right? At least subtle for now, because eventually they will become louder. It's just for now they're trying to be heard amidst so much and so many other things going on. So as we work on increasing their prominence in our daily lives, those voices will become louder, the ones that we want to hear from our intuitive selves. So having presence enough that when you sit down with your skull, that you're in that more curious state, and that wonder kind of energy can be a real door opener. And that, again, goes for anything in life. The more curious you are, you're coming from a more detached space, and it doesn't already have these parameters and expectations. It's just like the what if zone, right? The field of potentials. So trying to create a peace-centered space and time also, where you can slow everything down from your hectic day, and trying to, peace center yourself when you want to try to communicate and engage your crystal skull is also going to help. So feeling into that heart space and clearing or thanking any kind of thoughts that are running in your head, because so much is going on. And if you're trying to communicate with your skull, you don't want to have all that chatter going on, because it's going to get in the way and it's going to confuse things, and you won't be able to hear that subtle, intuitive connection that's going on behind the scenes. So it supports you to be more in the moment and aware also of what is you and what is not you, by tapping in, by being present with your body, by feeling into your emotions, doing those body and emotion check-ins with yourself to see what's going on and what you need to be aware of, what you're carrying into the experience you're trying to have that has nothing to do with it, or maybe it has nothing to even do with you, and you're just carrying a lot of stuff. So really being present with all of that is going to help you from the get-go. And also making sure that you're grounded. Staying grounded is very helpful. And that, entails being more in your body. So maybe you go out and do a nature walk beforehand. Maybe you spend time with a plant or an animal in your life. Maybe you hold a grounding crystal, a crystal that has, that energy that's more earthy. Maybe having a nourishing, very grounded meal, staying hydrated beforehand, maybe even doing some body movement beforehand, because we want to really just get into our bodies and feel, what's going on in there, and also to help ground ourselves so that we can be much more present with the experience and the feelings and sensations that are going on. So moving that energy through your vehicle, even from the start, before you even sit down to try and communicate. So there is prep to get yourself ready and get yourself into, as clear of a state as you can be. No one's, asking for some kind of ideal, perfect state, whatever that means. Just doing your best to get yourself in as clear a space as you can. And that takes practice, okay? And in this time period, you could also ask questions of yourself to help with that process, to help cultivate the presence. So, how and where can I be more present in my life? You could ask yourself. That's a way to, like, just really be in the moment and check in with yourself. How can I view things in a way that remind me of that inherent peace that is always available to me to return to? What am I feeling right now? You can ask that of yourself, of your body, just checking in again. So these are just examples. How can I change the daily practices that I have in my life to make them more fun, magical, creative, whatever word you want to put in there? So exploring ways that you can change the routine or change the patterns that, maybe they're more serious, maybe they're more regimented. So how can you make space for something new? And that can be a welcoming door as well. Where may I have some old beliefs, ideas, or blocks, maybe even fears, to my intuition and communicating with my skull? So checking in if you even have an idea around this that could be hindering. So these are things you could journal about, jot down, or you could just have a conversation with yourself, meditate on it, and see what comes up so that you become aware again of all the different things that are going on that you may not have noticed before when you just went straight into trying to talk to your crystal skull. And then they just popped up as confusion or a block or frustration or whatever. So becoming aware of these things that are getting potentially in your way of hearing and trusting and opening your heart to this relationship and process is important. And as you can see, I speak and use the word relationship. So it's not just about the crystal skull. That could be also about the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship with a friend, a loved one, family member. You can use all of the stuff that I'm talking about in any of those different engagements. So you're looking at what's running the dialogue in your mind and why it is, that you're unable to be present and clear and just listening, because potentially there's a lot of stuff running the show and you're not running the show. And these could have judgments going on about even how things should look. You might feel like it's supposed to look a certain way, or it's supposed to happen a certain way, or maybe even the very fact that you're trying to talk with a skull, that could have its own, judgments around it, or limiting or constricting ideas around it not happening fast enough, because you might have, an idea that it should happen very quickly because other people have it very quickly. So it's almost like a demanding kind of energy about the process, and that can constrict the energy as well and cause some challenge. You might even be comparing yourself and looking at other people and what their process is like, and feeling like yours needs to be like theirs and the way that you've heard them share that their experience is. So that could also be dictating how things are flowing, because if it doesn't look like so-and-so, then it may not be right. So then you negate the experience that you're having. That's just as valid. It's just different, and it's your way. You could have judgments around what may in fact be coming through. Maybe the information that's coming through. You might feel it's not real or it's not good enough. So you could even judge the information when it's coming through, and then that closes a door on it. If you find anything showing up in these categories, the best thing is to let it come up, lovingly address it, not to just shove it away or get angry at it. so that you can help to move that energy and release it. And even the fact that you may have these conditionings and these judgments, to love yourself and not judge yourself that you're bad or you're doing something wrong just because you have these judgments. We all have them. We all have them, just in different versions, in different ways, and for different parts of our lives. But if we are going to be harsh about it, or harsh towards ourselves about it, then that also can create a deterrent to the process. So you want to really try to soften yourself to yourself and what's coming up, and lovingly address it, as I said, and just let it flow through. And because if you aren't aware of these underlying currents, then you're not going to potentially understand why things aren't moving the way you would hope they might. And in fact, something else is directing your experience altogether, and it's not you and it's not your skull, but it's just all of these old programmings and other things going on in your life, and just stuff that you haven't really looked at ever, that's just calling your attention. And once you do look at it and let it move through, then it will clear the space for more. So awareness is key here. And it's the way through with anything. So again, as you see, we're not just talking about crystal skulls. So as I've talked about those and the things upcoming, find if one or more of these are speaking to you. And the goal here, again, is to just really be vulnerable around this dialogue and around the process, and to be as honest as you can with yourself about these things, and just see what comes up and how you feel about it. As I said, be curious about it and the relationship that you have with them, because that's going to help you to then move to the next stage of changing that relationship and starting to implement new ways and new processes. So the next bullet points that I'm going to get into, these are some of the things, as I mentioned, when I teach the everyday Reiki class, that I mentioned there, that can be helpful in the process of being able to experience Reiki more, the energy more, and making it more an integrated part of your life. That these are the things that can be the deterrents. And so they are also working here too with our process of communicating with the crystal skulls. I'm just going to, gear it specific to skulls here. But as I said, you could place almost anything, that you're trying to develop and, clear more in your life with looking at all of these different types of things. The first thing is self-sabotaging thoughts. And this comes up with many layers to our lives, that we may have some of these kinds of dialogues with ourselves internally that we're not fully aware of. I'm not good enough. I'm not as powerful as this person or that person. Just in general, having self-doubt, wanting proof to appease the ego. So looking, for some measurement of proof with what's happening, which is a way also that you talk yourself out of something, because you can't have that absolute answer right away. Like there's not somebody there that's telling you, oh yes, absolutely, that's how you talk to your skull, and oh yes, that's the correct information. So if you don't have that, and you have that running the show as your dialogue, that you need that, then that's going to right off the bat stop you, and so that self-sabotages. Another thing, I still have so much to learn, so I couldn't possibly start and do this. I'm not ready for the responsibility that opening to my power brings. I'm afraid I might not do it right. So you might even think any way you do it is just not right because of whatever reason. It doesn't look like someone else's, it's not what you were taught, and so forth. I'm afraid I'll be disappointed. You may have expectations, and if they don't meet them, then you're afraid it'll disappoint you. I don't trust myself. I don't trust my intuition. What if I'm wrong with what I think I'm hearing? Am I making it up? Do skulls even really talk? Am I crazy to be doing this? Will others think I'm crazy if they find out I'm doing this? Is this wrong or bad? Am I doing it wrong? And the thoughts just go on and on and on. And of course, you can see that a lot of this will stem from old stuff, and it could even be belief systems that you've been brought up in, that you're coming away from still, that you still are involved in, and they make you feel like something's wrong with doing this because it doesn't fit into the parameters of what you've been taught. So all of these things can come up, and then there are an internal dialogue that ends up self-sabotaging because we can't appease that part of ourselves, that part of our ego. So it's helpful if you're mindful, again, the awareness of the dialogue running in your head. And you can ask yourself any of these questions that I just did too, to see how you feel about it, to see if they trigger something, to see if there really is something there, but you just never explored it. And now all of a sudden that you ask the question, you're getting the answers, and that could have been your block. So even if you think some of these sound really silly, if you dig and you're curious, you may find they're not quite as silly as you think, because they can be deeply ingrained and not necessarily something that you've wanted to believe or that you feel would be who you are today in your belief system, but it could just be something you carry in you that is just ages old in your lineage even, or the collective, that is something that you're working to change, not just for yourself, but for all of those other people. So it can seem simple and silly, but it really isn't. And it may be rooted in something that's just really old and has been going on a long time and just never was addressed in the way that we're asking of you right now, with that awareness, that loving awareness and presence to what potentially might be there. So if these things come up, you thank them for what they're showing you, and you're able to see then what needs more of your love, what needs more of your support, and you can then reframe things in a different way, in a supportive and loving way, and acknowledge that you have every right to your power, that you're worthy, that your gifts are meant to be seen, to come forth. They're not meant to be like somebody else's. And when you come from love, then there is no wrongdoing. If that's the space you're in, you can know that you're not in a space of wrongdoing. So it's about believing in you. That's this self-sabotage dialogue that we're trying to access, is getting to the root of things and starting to really believe in yourself, and supporting the power that you may not have received support from others for, that you're going to give now to yourself through this love and trust of these parts of you. The next thing to look at would be around doubting the process and the experience itself. So again, a lot of these things I may be repeating and saying, but in different ways, emphasizing, because they are key. And so they come back around, so that we look at it from many different angles to ensure that we are undigging these parts that could be creating that frustration for us. So if this is new for you, communicating with a crystal skull, talking with them, you don't have a track record for it yet, right? It's not like other things in your life that you've been doing. So you haven't yet seen the synchronicities that can happen. You haven't been able to understand what some of the the things that show up or symbols that show up, what they mean for you or how to interpret them, because you haven't done it enough yet to put it into context. So there's that consistent practice that comes into play. Because it does take time. It takes time to understand how to interpret things, what's showing up, how your gifts reveal themselves. Some people hear things, some people see things, and so forth, feel things. So there's a different way for each of us. Some people might see colors or symbols, and then you may not know yet how to understand them. But with continued practice, you start to associate them with different things, and it starts to take on meaning, and you start to understand this language. It's not really a new language. It's only new to what you've experienced so far, but it's probably more accurately your true language that you're unwrapping here. Perhaps you also still have other people's dialogues running in the background that are saying, this is bad, this is evil, it's not of God, it can't be proven. You can put in any phrase you want in here, but again, that goes back to the ages-old lineage of different thought patterns that could be running the show that aren't who you are or who you want to be right now. So you have conditioned fears around stuff, around engaging this, or you may want to engage it, but you don't realize that some of this old stuff is still circulating in your energy field. And it simply needs to be recognized and released. You could even be afraid to be different. A lot of us don't like that feeling of being isolated because we're very connective as humans. We like to connect with others. And if you're doing something different than the people around you or what people around you have been used to, this could make you feel like you're the only one. So and if you don't have a community yet or haven't found one, then that could also be a deterrent. Like, I don't want to do this because I'm going to be too different. And then that doesn't feel good. You could also have judgments that it's a hard process, rather than believing it's something that could easily be done or that it could be simple. That just might be the way that you've learned things, is that everything has like this way about it, or it needs to be tough. It's not of value unless it's hard. And so that could be a belief system to work with and to shift. That no, it can be easy. It could be fluid. It may be just really simple. The things that show up could actually be quite clear. It's just that you have a different framework to see it through, and so it's skewing stuff for the moment. You might also believe that it has to come in some like extravagant, flashing colors, extraordinary, manifested way. And it may not. It may be quite subtle. It may be quite mundane and simple types of things that show up just like in your regular daily life, but you're missing them because they're not coming with the flashing colors. And you have a belief that it needs to be that way. Otherwise, it couldn't possibly be a message. So by your own definitions, there's a deterrent being set up right there. So that's just something to look at. Do you have expectations around how this process should look and be? And maybe you haven't made it fun yet. So that goes back again to maybe thinking everything has to be hard, or you've been taught to be more serious. So it hasn't been made enjoyable, and it seems like work because you're making it like all the other things in your life that are like that, a more arduous kind of experience. And that just might be because you're used to structures and rules and following certain formats. And so that's where you get stuck with this process, is that it could be just really fluid and could be really fun. And you're approaching it from the serious space when a softening and a lightening and the playfulness could be a more engaging approach with this particular avenue that you're trying to open. So having that wonder and inviting in the inner child, and I'm going to get into that a little bit more at the end, but that's really key as well, and that's part of the curiosity too. When you're curious, you're in that more inner child zone, right? You're wondering about things. It's the what if space, and it's exploratory, and it's a discovery, and that makes things more enjoyable and fun and more fluid, rather than squeezing it into this rigid expression, which can suck the life out of it and maybe not make it so fun and not something you want to engage on a daily basis. So you start to see how a lot of the things we're talking about can be potentials that might have gotten in the way, right? So again, believing in yourself, your unique process, in the way that this relationship wants to unfold and not how we direct it to unfold is all going to be helpful. And to understand that it's happening even when you doubt it. It's just that you can't see it behind, the glasses that you're wearing right now. They're not seeing things rosy. They're seeing things, all covered in black, and you can't like peer through it at the moment. That's all. So just need to put on some different glasses to see them. Maybe that's part of the fun, is you put on some really fun tinted glasses to view this process with while you're doing it. But it is happening, even if you're not presently aware of that. It's just that you might be attached to wanting to see it work a certain way. And that's what we're getting over the hump of. It's always working at the highest good level and in multiple layers for you to unwrap. Another one is attachment. So being attached to all sorts of things, but outcomes in general. So attachments, we've been talking about this through all of the processes so far, but it's about where you're attached to any part of the process. It's a huge thing to be mindful of that can put pressure on yourself and the experience, and ultimately make it make stress the focal point rather than the subtle voices and the fun of it, and being able to notice and hear things, because your expectations are more in the forefront than anything else. So this can be in the way you state your intentions. You could set up the process of the communication beforehand by how you address your intentions for that session before even engaging them, and trying to have an intention of openness, or having an intention of playfulness with it. Your goal here is about surrendering to the process. So having an intention to engage on a more curious level, engage on a more open-hearted level. So any way you want to phrase things, intention can always be the starting point with anything we do as well, and can hold what you would like as the focus of that experience. So putting that out there as well, and being aware of the things you're attached to, can help you phrase what you want your intention to be, and then surrendering that to the highest good can help as well, so that way you're not staying attached to the way your intention has to look, but are open to the process, and it removes that ego attachment. Also, you might be attached to how the communication comes through. So you want to be open to receiving in an organic, everything is divine and perfect kind of way. And that's going to rewrite sort of the expectations of what you're expecting the communication to look like. The point is to just keep being open and trusting the process as perfect and working in that highest good vibration. So always the highest good can be part of your intention for it. And then trusting that if that's your intention, then anything that comes forth is in the highest good. And then trusting also that the small steps are okay and can be very useful and practical for you. Sometimes it needs to come in smaller steps to prepare you more, because if it came too fast or in big ways, it could potentially scare you if you're not ready, or you just may not be prepared yet for those bigger things. So taking it slowly and not worrying or judging that it happens in incremental steps, knowing it's the perfect way for you, that it has no right or wrong or better or worse to it, and that there's something rich to receive in the process as well while you're doing this, that every part of the journey is integral. So being grateful for each step, that each step is helpful for more to keep coming and pouring forth. It's one step at a time. And as long as there's momentum, then that's a great thing to be experiencing. That's helpful rather than having a complete block that you can't step forward at all. So be grateful and happy to take the small steps and allow the rest to unfold as it may. You might even have ideas of attachments to what you think is the highest good. As I said, you're going to have that as your intention from the get-go, that things are happening and working for the highest good, and really having detachment around what the highest good is going to benefit you. But if you're attached to what you think highest good means, then that's still an attachment, right? So you're not really surrendering things and allowing the organic process to happen. You're still controlling it. So being aware of that as well is going to help you, because you still might be trying to control and manipulate or judge the whole process in some way, when in fact you just need to remember that universe, source, all it is, God, they don't hold judgments like we do in this way. And your skulls are channeling from a multidimensional space, and that space doesn't operate in these same frameworks of right and wrong and better and worse either. So simply from alignment and what matches that highest in that moment. So all this to say is that it's really important to take a look at what you're attached to. And I haven't hit on all of the things that you potentially might be attached to, but it's good to engage that before getting into having communication with your skull, because it's going to set parameters on what comes through and your experience, and potentially even block the whole experience in some way. And so then we work on releasing the attachments and surrendering the process to spirit. Once we've set things in motion, once whatever intention we've placed, we surrender it completely. But this is all fundamental to the process, because if you are attached, again, it's not allowing that organic highest good to come forth, and could shut a door from the get-go. And then you can't hear the subtle voices, because subtle voices, they don't fight for your attention, because they exist in purity of essence that doesn't need to do that. So they're not going to put up a fight in the way that the ego voices do and all these attached voices do. So that's something to think about, that there's a huge lesson of growth around all of this that's much more and goes so much deeper than just connecting and communicating with our crystal skulls. There's this greater state of unconditional love and compassion that we're being taught in this process through, the essence of speaking with our skulls. So it's a beautiful, there's many other different avenues and modalities and ways and processes we could go about the things that I'm talking about. But it is interesting also that the crystal skulls are one of those. And if they've chosen you and you've chosen them, then it's a beautiful way to work with these types of things. So that's why we're bringing it to the attention here today, so that you can see just how much your crystal skull can actually help you with, even beyond what you might have come here for, to communicate with them, but to actually be aware of within yourself on so many other levels that is going to help you in your experience of life in totality. So the next one that I want to talk about, another bullet point, is forgetting to make the communication and tuning in as a daily practice. I said this before, that, we're not used to this, especially if we've just come to the table. And this is all brand new for us. So in order to make it a natural experience and part of our lives, engaging it, committing to a practice, whatever that looks like, even if it's just a few minutes a day, making it part of your daily experience. It's probably one of the keys that people miss the most with a lot of things. And it's something that I share about with Reiki, is that people forget to actually use that ability. They learn it and then forget, oh, I could have used Reiki for that situation. There's something that we get taught in level 3 of Reiki that's called a healing attunement. And it's one of the most powerful tools that we can use to support intentions on any level, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually in our lives. And I find we're always giggling because with people that I've taught, when I ask them, "Oh, have you done a Reiki healing attunement?" "No, I forgot." And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's start there." That's what it's about. You forget the tools in your toolbox that you have. It's just about practicing. And once you practice, all of a sudden, it becomes a part of your life, and you realize that it's a magical piece you've been missing, and then it builds from there. So it's the same with the communicating with the crystal skulls. You've never done it, but in order to really increase that channel of communication and learn your language and understand how to interpret things and get a clearer, pure channel going, it'll take some practice and making that part of your life on a daily basis. So whatever that looks like is going to be great. Again, starting small and working your way into things and making it easy and making it fun. So create your own kind of ritual around it. Remember to play with it. Have it unfold organically and have a playful invitation around it to make it something that you look forward to and enjoy, making it a priority like anything else you do in life. Like you get up in the morning, you brush your teeth, or you make breakfast, or you make your bed. All these things have become part of your natural routine. But, you have to learn that at some point, when you were younger. Now it's just second nature. Well, it's the same. Eventually, it'll happen with your crystal skull that communicating will become second nature and part of your everyday experience. And you'll just be going through life and walking through your house, picking them up and talking, or, it's just going to be this normal process like anything else that you do in your life. And only at first things seem hard. That first step, the first intention to release the resistance to the process of communicating with your skull. But then trusting your intuition is key part of this as well, since, no one's going to be there to tell you that the information you received is right or wrong, or even just how to do it in the first place. Only you're going to know how to work with them and what works for you and what things mean for you. But you're going to have to come from that place of trust. And even trust is something we have to teach and build within ourselves, because it's not something necessarily that we're taught from the get-go. And that takes time. So all of these things might seem like baby steps, and that might be putting you off if you have that workhorse mentality of, it's going to be hard and on all that kind of thing, and may not be fun. But it can be. The baby steps can be fun. Every little new thing that opens up and happens, celebrate it and make it an exciting thing to be grateful for. But that's how you learn anything new, is having a starting point and working towards, things that are more attainable. Otherwise, you can easily self-sabotage. And there is effort that's needed to relearn something, especially if it's like undoing a lifetime or lifetimes of conditioning. Then, that programming is going to involve shifting things on a really core level, and that takes consistency. But again, we can make it simple, we can make it fun. Just take steps, any steps, find ways to do that, to just bring it into your life, that relationship with your crystal skull to be part of your daily life, just like anything else you set out to do and learn is going to benefit from you making it a part of your life and actually doing it. It's like the same with, you don't get benefits of yoga simply by buying a yoga mat, or you don't get benefits of a college degree simply by signing up for courses. You have to use your yoga mat and go through the exercises regularly and go to your classes and apply what you learn into your field of choice in terms of, your college degree. So it's the same with talking with your crystal skull or anything, learning Reiki, learning something new, whatever it is. Simply bringing your crystal skull home doesn't make the communication happen. You may need to cultivate a process and become aware of any of these blocks or deterrents, nurture self-trust, a commitment to learning what your individual way and language of communication is, and being that many of us are conditionally learned to value intellect over intuition, then repetition is required there to make a shift also into trusting and hearing on new levels. So it's a whole system of stuff that we're looking at here. And there's probably a lot more things than I'm even hitting on right now. But I think that, I tune in what I think are some of the key factors. And I think that if you address a lot of the stuff that I've brought up today, I think you're going to really get to the core of some of the deterrents that have been running the show in your life and experience for communicating and opening those channels with your crystal skulls. These are just some standouts, that I thought of because of my own explorations, experiences with people and myself. And, there might be people out there that will watch this episode and share some other things down in the comments below. And we can all learn from each other and find, those little golden threads that will weave some alchemy for us and make these processes amazing for each of us in our own individual way. But once you feel at peace with these pieces, then you can start to move into the phase of communicating. And again, these things aren't necessarily for everyone that I just spoke about, and maybe only a few of them or one of them might be pertinent to your journey. It might sound repetitive, but again, we're trying to find those places within us that are creating challenges for the connection. And I think that even if none of these spoke to you, they may even unravel something by exploring them, because sometimes it's just like that the dot that helps you to connect the next dot, and so forth and so on. So as you explore it might not be that particular thing, but it creates this dialogue that brings up something else. So at least, going through them and seeing what you feel about them, checking in with your body, will give you some some pointers as to where your own challenges lie and how you can shift them. But I believe that committing to an exploratory process is going to help you to uncover those potential hindrances. So, as I said, once you've looked at all of these things, and I do really encourage you to look at these things before jumping in. Again, if this is, something new for you, to explore the potentials that could be blocking stuff. And then moving forth with some of the stuff that I may hit on in upcoming episodes. I'm going to touch on one briefly to end this one out with, but look at these, because I think that it's going to reveal something for you, and it's going to help you before you even try to engage talking and hearing and all that kind of thing. So doing the exploratory, checking in is integral, and also connecting with your crystal skull, which we've talked about at the beginning of this series, which can be about warmly welcoming your crystal skull once they come home. It could be a cleansing bath that you give it, any kind of choice of cleansing that feels right for you to do, introducing your crystal skull to your home, to other friends and crystals, just admiring your crystal skull and really looking at all of its uniqueness, the unique beauty it has, admiring his or her attributes, how they make you feel when you hold them. So really tuning in with your crystal skull also. So first, you're looking at what kind of challenges and deterrents might be running the show. And then you're just engaging on a simplified sort of way, which is just feeling into your skull, welcoming your skull, just getting to know what they look like, what they feel like before you even, try to go the next step. So it's like the courting part of the relationship before you go deeper and try to get more intimate. So just doing all those kinds of things. And then how about engaging in a little make-believe session, as if you're a child again, playing with your imaginary friends, and pretend that you're engaging your skull fluidly and having a conversation about anything light and fun. Could you go there? That would be my first step of the communicating, to really dive into that playfulness that I was talking about. I think it can open up so much. I know that it can also be a real stretch for people, because we're taught, not to go there as much. Maybe the focus is more around being serious to get through life. But I guarantee you that if you can allow yourself a space for imagination and bringing that more into your process, that you can open the floodgates in amazing ways for so much to stream through. And that would be my first key advice after you've done the things that I said, just getting to know your skull on a very courting kind of level, looking at all of the deterrents so that you're aware of the things that might challenge the process. But then once you want to get into the communication, is diving into the world of imagination. Imagination is the invitation to the field of possibility and the multidimensional realms that you likely may not otherwise experience, except for maybe in dream states or meditation. Imagination, it's what makes this realm accessible in your waking life, and it invites your intuitive and creative abilities to meet with your heart so that you can merge these for manifestation. In this case, manifesting your telepathy, communication lines, and being able to hear, see, and feel so much more. I think that when we give ourselves permission to play in this realm, we give our gifts permission to come forth. And there is, when you think about it, a very fine line between imagination and reality, because belief makes things so. We've been taught to only believe in certain kinds of things, and in order to communicate with your skull, you may need to suspend some of that. And that's some of the discovery you make in the inquiries around, the deterrents that might be running the show. And when you suspend some of that stuff, you're welcoming in a new dance so that it becomes a part of your life naturally to play in the fields of possibility. And it's kind of like how we make, instead of, I have my life, I do Reiki. I have my life, I meditate. I have my life, I talk with a skull. It's that walking meditation. It's that everyday Reiki. It's that having just a normal conversation with my skull on a consistent basis. What if you could hear your skull? Ask these questions. What if you could hear your skull? It's playing in the what if arena. What if they had a personality? What if you had no limits to what was possible? What if? Dance in that what if. Just a little bit more, and I guarantee you that doors will open wider for you. It's really, really the key. And that's why I wanted to start with that as the first step to trying to start the communication process, is dancing in the field of possibilities, in the what ifs, in the imagination realm. That's how you're going to invite the subtle voices forward, the intuition, the telepathy. It's going to start as feeling like it's imagination, making things happen, but the fluidity will turn into an organic process that is the realm of all that is just creating in the moment. It feels amazing. It really will. And I think that allowing and surrendering to that space is what's going to really engage the next steps. So I think that's a good place to stop for this episode. As I said, I mostly wanted to help you with the core processes that will get you over the hump. And then I added in one little tidbit of how to communicate. And maybe in upcoming episodes, we'll add a little bit more. So if you have anything to share, as always, would love to hear it. I hope you found some kind of pearl of wisdom here, or just a widening perspective with your process. This is not necessarily an episode for everyone, although, as I said, a lot of these things can be used for any aspect of our life, not just communicating with skulls. Thank you for tuning in once again. And if you do want any personal help, I'm more than happy to help you with the Talk with Your Crystal Skull sessions, and learning about you and helping you to find your way. But perhaps these insights today will be just the momentum that you needed, and you will flourish in amazing ways from here on, and the doors will open that you had locked for quite a while, and that's a great thing. So until next time, may all possibilities be open to you. Dance in the field of possibilities. Dance in the what if. I'm right there with you. All my love. See you next time.